Welcome back to another Premier Division show. Once again, delighted to welcome Sean, Waterford man, Sean Lean onto the show, just in case anyone didn't know you're a Waterford man. This thing.
Yeah, don't want anyone getting confused.
No, we wouldn't. Because we're going to be delightfully talking about Cork City now, Sean, and a
Yeah,
derby that you'll be looking forward to next year,
mm,
of course, as well. But we're going to talk about the games as well, obviously. Bohemians at Shelbourne, St Patricks Ath trip to Oriel Park, and then we're going to finish up talking about the ownership issues at Dundalk, which is just a mess. But we'll start off with Cork City because they've obviously got promoted into the Premier Division. They'll be back next year. They won the league title by winning 1-0 against second place UCD at Belfield. 6 games to go, and they're league champions, 19 points ahead of UCD, who are actually second in the league. They've won 20 games out of 30, drawn 9, only lost 1, scored 47, conceded 12, which is just an unbelievable record, isn't it, at the back end, if you like. And it seems teams that are generally more solid end up winning this league. Galway the year before as well won it convincingly, and you would say that they were more solid at the back than they were going forward. Of course, Cork have added Maguire and Keating, but they've only come in the last couple of weeks, so they're more with a view in next year. But
mm,
like, let's be honest, I think most people, including Waterford fans, in all honesty, be delighted to see Cork City in the Premier Division.
mm,
And from a Waterford point of view, it's a proper derby back for them as well, like,
mm.
isn't it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, going to Cork away. I mean, this derby hasn't been in the Premier Division since 2020. Like nobody was going to go to it again. So the last time anyone was able to go to this game in the Premier Division was 2019. So we're talking about a 5-year wait. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if you're talking about the Premier Division being advertised as like something that people want to watch, Cork City are in that. If you're
Mm,
designing your ideal 10 teams, I think Cork are probably one of the first names on that list.
mm.
So yeah, it is good, undeniably, that they're back in the Premier Division, and in my opinion, they look stronger than when they went up the last time.
Mm.
Keating and Maguire now are in that team, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Cathal O'Sullivan, whether he commands a hefty fee for moving somewhere else, whether he can move on to the Premier Division. They've got a number of other players too. I think Sean Murray was a good signing that they made. He was on loan. Now he's permanently there from Glentoran, and he's there to the end of next year.
Mm.
I still think, like with any promoted team, you're going to have to make, if you're Cork City, you're going to have to make 6 or 7 really good signings if you want to actually, if you don't want to get hammered every game. Because the step up, I mean, particularly this year, I thought the first division was very, very weak. Cork took care of business. They played, you can only play the team that's in front of you, and Cork took care of business in very convincing fashion. But they are going to have, it's going to be a big improvement to make in order to do better and to not have a repeat of what happened last year.
Yeah, in fairness to Tim Clancy, he's made no bones all season that the target is to win the league. It hasn't been,
Mm.
you know what I mean? There's been no hiding away from that from a Cork City perspective. And
No.
look, they've achieved that. And going into next year, yeah, I agree with you as well. They've a manager, though, that has a lot of experience, actually, especially his time at Drogheda, in terms of having a
Mm.
team who got promoted and having to deal with staying up and stuff. So he knows what to do there. You can see him bringing in, I'd nearly see him bringing in more experienced players next year into the
Mm.
Cork side, to be honest with you. You mentioned Cottle
Yeah.
O'Sullivan there as well. I think they'll probably get him for half a season anyway, because I don't think he's 18 until, I could be wrong here, but I think it might be September or something like that. I'll have to
He's
check on.
currently is he currently 16?
He's 17, actually.
He's 17 now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But
Mm.
yeah, I can see them bringing in more experience next year, and
Mm.
be interesting to see. As I said, they're fairly strong at the back in the first division, but it would
Mm.
be interesting to see what type of players. Would you expect them to bring in more kind of experienced Premier Division type players?
I would say so, and I think particularly at the back as well,
Mm,
because I think that's where we're going to have to make the step up. I think, yeah, you've got solid options with, say, like Charlie Lyons or Keane Coleman at the back, reliable players, but you're going to have to like have a player who's even more solid than that, I think, in my opinion.
mm,
Also, I think the squad yeah, at the moment is pretty light for Cork because they can kind of get away with it. They've got a fairly decent, youth academy with the likes of O'Sullivan and Jaden Uma, who moved to Benfica in the summer and stuff like that, and they kind of supplemented the squad with that. You get away with that in the first division. I think you won't get away with that in the Premier Division. I
mm.
think as far as I would say going forward, there probably there won't be any big moves going forward. Keating and Maguire particularly if I think Keating won't take any real time to adjust. Like he's been in the league for a while, but Sean Maguire's had a rough time of it in England the past few years playing for Carlisle and whoever else. So it'll take him a bit of time to get up to speed. But if he can, he'll be obviously a very big threat.
Mm. Yeah, by the way, Cottle O'Sullivan's 18 in March, so look,
Okay.
they'd have him to the summer is the point anyway. So
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see if they can hang on to him after that till the end of the season or whatever. But probably unlikely, I'd imagine. Moving on to the football, basically, Bohemians drew 1-1 against
Mm.
Shelbourne at Dalymount Park. The second time they've drew 1-1 in the last couple of weeks. Matty Smith giving Shells the lead in 59 minutes with his first
Mm.
goal of the season, believe it or not. And Ross Tierney scoring an equaliser in 83 minutes after it was deflected into the net. I watched this game, Sean, and Bows, I have to say, were probably the better side, particularly the first
Mm.
half, actually, where they played all the football, had a lot of the tempo setters in the games anywhere as
Mm.
well, but they probably didn't create enough chances, if I'm honest with you, Sean, for the kind of areas they were getting into. Now, there
Mm.
was one shot, James Clark had a go, and Gannon clears it pretty much on the line. There was another effort from
Mm.
Tierney after good play from James Clark. He
Mm.
blazed it over the bar. But yeah, I felt at half time that Bohemians could they rue that then? They had a lot of control, they were
Mm.
dominating, they were getting the good areas, weren't creating enough. And we've
Mm.
seen this story with Shelbourne before, who weren't really on
Mm.
it at all. So into the second half, and it was kind of more even. And when Manny Smith did score that goal on 60 minutes, you were thinking, if they get 3 points
Mm.
here, it's a great 3 points because they haven't played well at all, etc., etc. Obviously, this is for their game in hand as well on Derry City.
Yeah.
And it was a weird one. The free kick was played in, and Flores, he probably could have let it go. So I don't know if the keeper may
Mm.
communicated that or something, but he could have let it go. But instead, he kind of wildly hits it with his right foot. He's a left-footed player, obviously.
Mm.
Now Smith does well to react. He catches onto it and
Mm.
flashes it into the net, smashes it into the net, really, I should say. And you're
Mm.
thinking they've gone and done it again here. But in the last
Mm.
10, 15 minutes or so, you see Shells kind of sitting back a little bit again, and Bowles came on to them. And obviously, Ross Tierney scored that deflected goal, which got them a deserved point, in all honesty, to say the least, probably. If anyone really deserved to win, it was probably Bowles. But from Shelbourne's point of view, I think it's still a point gained because they're 4 points. They've got something out of the game in hand. You know what I mean? They're 4 points clear of Derry now, which is a big thing, isn't it? 53 points, Derry and 49.
Mm.
But for Bowes, look, they'll want to play Dublin derbies every week because they're unbeaten the last three games and they've all been Dublin derbies. So I was making a joke to Billy. I was saying the next time they play a team outside Dublin in the league, they're losing that game. But they'll just want to play Dublin derbies every week. But they have been playing well in the last three games. It's the funny thing, but they're
Yeah.
strange in that
Mm.
sense. You know what I mean? But yeah, from Bowes' point of view, it's still a good result for Bowes. And the goal, though, there's been a lot of
Mm.
complaints from
Mm.
Shelbourne fans, Sean, saying that it should have been a free. Dale Rooney obviously slides in. For
Yeah.
me, he wins the ball.
Mm.
And yeah, he kind of catches, I think it was Evan Caffrey, a little bit on a bit of a kind of a follow through scenario. But I don't know. Caffrey kind of he takes a second or two to go down for me, and he then runs up quickly to the referee and things like that. I don't know. I think it would have been a harsh free kick to give that. What did you think about that anyway?
Yeah, I don't think that's a free kick at all, really. Yeah, Rooney gets the ball first. He slips. He's on the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an argument that Caffrey could have closed down Tierney if he got there first. I don't think he would have.
Mm.
I think Shels. They're making a much bigger deal out of this. I thought a draw was a fair result on the night.
Mm.
They really can't have any complaints with regards to that. They're still in a good position. They're still, I think a loss tonight would have been, or a loss for Shelbourne on Friday would have been not, okay, it wouldn't have damaged their points total, but it would have been very damaging to morale. I
Mm.
think because then the whispers that you're bottling, you're choking, they get a little bit louder. So I think a draw saves a lot of face. It puts them a point further ahead of Derry. Obviously, you want to win every game, but given how the two teams played on the night, I think a draw, Shelbourne have to take that.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, they got something out of the game in hand as well. On
Mm.
to Dundalk. We'll talk about the Brian Ainscough and problems with the owner level after
Mm.
the actual game, but we'll focus on the game for now. At Oriel Park finished Dundalk 1, St Patricks Ath 2. Owen Kenny on 2 minutes, of course, his first goal, senior
Yeah,
goal. It's against his
against his
father,
dad.
Stephen.
Yeah.
That must be weird, by the way. To be honest with you, like, you know what I mean? If you're the dad, I think it's even weird, stranger.
There was something similar happened in England a couple of
Mm.
years ago. Somebody who knows maybe could link that, but it did happen, and it was even worse because it was the owner of a club, and his son was playing against him for the other team. So
Uh,
yeah, it's very bizarre.
no, it's a
If it was
weird
me
one.
now, I'd have gone over. I'd have cut my ear to him, like if I just.
That would have been hilarious, wouldn't it? That would have
I'm
you went
so
over, gave him the
disappointed.
finger or
Yeah.
something. But anyway, yeah, Tom Gravossi in the second half equalised in
Mm,
55, and Mason Melia scored in
mm,
68 to give Pats all 3 points. Now,
mm,
the first half, I thought that Dundalk were actually the better side. I thought they came
mm,
out and they really stuck it up to Pats.
mm,
Obviously, a great early goal as well. And anytime
mm,
they did attack Pats looked quite vulnerable at the back. And I know there was a
mm,
bit of a wind. And I wonder if that played in a little bit as well. Like, or when I say a bit of a wind, it was actually very windy. So a lot of throw-ins and stuff like that caused a lot of issues into the
yeah.
box. And Dundalk caused a lot of issues in that sense. And
Mm,
they did have opportunities apart from the goal. And Ryan O'Kane was causing a lot of problems in the first half
mm,
down the left-hand side. Pats did have chances as well. Funnily enough, weren't shown in the highlights. Keane
mm,
missed a 1-on-1 actually, which wasn't shown in the highlights. I've talked about that
mm.
before. The highlights package is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Brandon Cavan hits the post after Goddard. By the way, Goddard is. I don't know what
Mm,
to say.
yeah.
To say he's dodgy, Sean. Like Dundalk fans
I,
will know,
I think
to
he was
say the
at
least.
fault for them losing this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
thought the goal, particularly the Melia goal,
mm.
can he be off his line? Surely there.
He
Like,
must
why is
be.
he stuck to his line? He's stuck to his line there.
It's
Amelia's
like,
scoring that
yeah,
from the line, essentially, isn't he?
he's so close in. Like
Yeah,
he could have walked it in.
yeah. I think the keeper has to be. He's almost invisible there. I think and
Mm.
his kicking as well. His distribution is causing issues
It's,
as well. It's not just. It's every facet of the game as a goalkeeper. He's
yeah,
struggling with for some reason.
he's very poor. I mean, I know Ross Monroe hasn't been great for Dundalk either, but I think he'd have been better than that
I think
for
so. Yeah.
Dundalk. Yeah.
I think to be honest with you, if you're going for worst goalkeeper of the season, there's an interesting debate between Goddard and Pitaluga. Um,
Jeez, there's a competition for this is the Irish Footy Vlogs end of season video top 10 worst goalkeepers.
No, we'd get slaughtered if we done that. Could never talk to a goalkeeper again. But yeah, Tom Gravossi's goal was actually very good. He
Mm,
he took that well as well. But Pats were much better in the second half. I thought they controlled it, and you could see who the better footballing side was in the second half.
mm,
Some of their football was good. Forrester was very good. Mulroney actually was good again, and you felt like coming into the closing stages though that Dundalk were going to get a chance. That's what I felt watching it. I thought
mm,
Pats. I was thinking to myself, Pats could really not be 3-1 up here because they probably should have been 3-1 up going into closing
mm.
stages. And Dundalk had a little spell at the end, and then right at the end, it appears that Bulger has another rush of blood to the head actually and
Mm.
takes down. I think it was Daryl Horgan. The referee's
Mm.
in a good position, doesn't give the penalty. I thought
Yeah,
personally before even seeing a replay, I thought, ooh, that's a penalty.
yeah.
And I was waiting for it to be given.
Mm.
And then when you see the benefit of the replay, oh, that's definitely a penalty. Are
Yeah,
you surprised that wasn't given?
I'm very surprised. Very, very surprised. Thought Dundalk had a right to feel aggrieved about that. Unfortunately for them, I mean, and we're going to get into other reasons why, but I think
Mm.
the loss is kind of emblematic of the problems. It's very poetic that they did lose on Thursday night because even though I actually thought they were slightly better than Pats on the night, especially in the first half, I thought
First
it
half,
looked
for sure.
it,
Yeah.
it looked like they were really going to push on and grind out, maybe a 1-0 win or even a 2-1 win
Mm.
when Pats equalised. I thought they could have done that, but just those individual errors and like everything else is going on. I mean, I know it was a Thursday night, but as well, you're used to seeing Dundalk in their prime and a packed out Oriel Park. Even last Friday against Shelbourne, there
Mm.
was loads of people at Oriel Park, and there were so few people there on
Mm.
Thursday night. I think they actually the away end was very busy. It looked, at least to me,
Mm.
and
The
the
home
home
end
end,
sounded, even when they're one up, was there a
yeah.
bit of a ghostly feeling about the place? And they're one up.
If it very much was. I mean, I think back to like the Waterford United days, where you're getting a couple of hundred people turning up to games, and
Yeah.
you look across to the new stand, and there's barely anybody there. Like that's
Mm.
kind of what it felt like. It's like nobody really cares.
Mm. Yeah, that's a concern before we heard the news afterwards. But before we get into that, um, the players
Mm.
deserve an awful lot of credit because when we did hear the news after
Oh
the match,
yeah.
I mean, the effort, like to go out on the pitch,
Mm.
we'll get into it now, I suppose. Obviously, John Daly
Mm.
confirmed, there was whispers, we confirmed
Mm.
after the match that
Yeah.
nobody was getting paid at the club. The
Mm.
staff haven't been paid, didn't know when they were going to be getting paid. John Mountney
Mm.
said he'd no idea when they were going to be getting paid, etc., etc.
Yeah.
We'll get into some of the other details in a minute. But for the players
Mm.
to go out and put in a fight like that. And they did the same against Shelbourne the week before.
Mm.
Very unlucky to
Yeah.
play in both games with no points, by the
Mm.
way. And this is a decently formed Pats team they're playing as well, who didn't play terribly on
Mm.
the night either. But you have
Mm.
to commend the players, like, because they went out and they
Yeah.
put up one hell of a fight, and it's a very difficult situation for
Yeah.
them and the staff of the club.
Mm. Yeah, massive credit to the Dundalk players. I mean, they. I don't think with the news that came out, I don't think anyone would have blamed them if they're just like given up because you're talking about people's livelihoods,
Mm.
and the ownership situation as well. I mean, you could see it happening. Brian Ainscough, unfortunately, he has a character for it. He did it with Kerry. No, if he'd have stayed with Kerry now, like he'd be on a team that's on an upward trajectory that's developing from the ground up. Everyone would think he was great. He jumped ship. He thought it was going to be easy. I saw this comment, I believe, on Twitter or something like that, and so someone wondering, did Jim McGilton jump ship because he saw how bad the situation was, and Ainscough was being very naive about how dire the situation was. He thought he was going to get other investors on board. That didn't happen.
I tell you
Yeah,
what about that, Sean. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about the investors. I always thought that this isn't even in
yeah,
hindsight. I thought that was odd that he went
mm,
in, took over the club without securing investors before he actually
yeah,
agreed to take over the club. I thought that was bizarre. And now with the news coming out, it's even more bizarre because
mm,
obviously the club are 1.2 million debt, which is worse than it was in 2012.
mm,
Ainscough must have known when he was signing the contracts, etc., the
yeah,
condition of the club and the books, etc.
mm,
There's no way in hell
no,
he is putting his money into the club without knowing that situation.
mm,
I think he's been gullible though, in terms of
mm,
thinking that he was going to get investors no problem after the fact.
yeah,
That's where I think he's been gullible, in
mm,
my opinion. But that's where he makes the mistake here. Now this isn't all his fault because
mm,
peak six, etc.
yeah,
Peak
yeah,
six
mm,
left by the end of their tenure, they left 2 million to cover debts to Stat Sport, who then took over,
yeah,
obviously. But by the end of peak six, they were bringing in players from every continent
yeah.
on
I
the
mean,
in the world for an awful lot of money, and by the end, they pretty
mm,
much had to buy them off, buy them
yeah.
out of their contracts. You know what I mean, and release them in that sense. And there was stories about Zebo. Remember him, the midfielder?
He was on 4 grand a week, I believe.
There was exactly, and there were
It was
stories about,
insane money.
like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like, so. But they did. The problem was there as well, and then
yeah,
Stat Sports come in and take it over, and now you're asking the question with Stat Sport, where did the money go? Where did the 2 million go
mm,
that was left there to cover debts? Just to cover
yeah,
debts, by the way, nothing
mm,
else. So where did that 2 million go with Stat Sport, who were only there a year, I think, as well?
yeah,
So that's a big question to me. That's a big hole there. And obviously then Ainscough comes in and takes over
mm,
their debt and his mistake, as I mentioned before. But he's nowhere to be seen now. Apparently,
no,
as we're recording this, like he's in America now, and I've
mm,
been told he's been. A couple of days ago, I was told that he's ignoring everybody. Now, I don't know if he said something in the background,
mm,
but he hasn't come out publicly and said
mm.
anything, which is worrying as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, his behaviour at I remember Louth Derby earlier this year. He lost the plot with a draw to sport. It indicates a little bit of unprofessionalism.
Mm. And he had a row
Um,
on Twitter with somebody. I can't remember what he said, but it was very
he
childish.
did. He told someone to like go fuck themselves,
Yeah,
basically, or something like that.
it's extreme.
It's
If
like
you're an owner of a
responding to
football
us.
club, you
Yeah,
can't come out on Twitter with
you can't
remarks.
do that. You're the owner. You have to behave with a certain level of decor or professionalism.
Mm.
And you can't do that. I mean, yeah, like, but it is true. I mean, look, as bad as Brian Ainscough is, this
Mm.
didn't happen overnight
No.
at Dundalk, unfortunately. I mean, I remember like going back to say 2020, 2021, and Hull Sizer, and he wanted a telephone in the dugout so he could like he called the plays basically, and he signed in like Alessio Abibi, and they signed a South Korean winger, and they said that they were going to
Mm.
break into the Asian market with this fella,
Mm.
and it was all pie in the sky stuff, signing players I read about on ESPN and stuff like that. It was insane, and it was such a terrible use of the money because the thing is now. that I understand that Dundalk don't own Oriel Park
Mm,
per se,
mm,
right? But
mm.
if the money is there, you can develop your own facilities, or you know, if there's enough money and there's a will, you can even work towards developing those facilities. Oriel Park hasn't changed at all. Like Dundalk have won how many? Four, five, six even League of Ireland
And
titles.
it hasn't been touched. And when something isn't touched, it gets worse.
It gets worse. So you talk about, like, because it's obviously happened to other clubs, happened to Cork City, it's happened to Derry City.
Mm,
Um, it looked like it was going to happen to us in
mm,
2016 before Lee Power took over.
mm,
Even if that had happened to us, and as it happened to Cork and Derry, the facilities were still there. There was
mm.
something that a Phoenix club could come back to and have already a base to build upon. I don't know what's there for Dundalk when, because you have to acknowledge the possibility. Another thing I saw is that the Dundalk Democrat, I think, had this, that the club doesn't know whether or not they're going to be in a position to facilitate their fixture against
Mm,
Waterford
mm,
in 2 weeks' time. You're talking about the team, basically putting them out of the league, which hasn't
mm.
happened since Monaghan
That's
United.
a case of if the players don't get paid, the PFA, I have been
Mm,
working with the players in the last few days. There's a lot going on that still hasn't come out
yeah.
yet in that kind of way.
Mm,
But yeah, that's if that happens now. Apparently, then they're likely to be paid now in the next few days. So I have a feeling the
mm,
fixture will go against Waterford. But if they
yeah.
get paid in the next few days, what happens when they get paid next? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's been talk that maybe a
Yeah.
consortium's going to take over, a local
Mm,
consortium, till the end of the season.
yeah.
Um, but it sounds like something like that's going to happen because you can't have a situation I'm paid
Mm,
now. Am I going to get? And it's not just the players, it's staff at the club. It's
yeah.
it's the whole staff between
Mm,
coaching staff, managers, players. The tea lady, as I say, etc. It's
yeah.
everybody, and you can't go
Everybody. Yeah.
into a job and go, sorry, we actually can't pay you this month. There,
Yeah.
we don't know. You'll be paid. We just don't know when. You
Mm,
can't have that uncertainty over
never.
you. That's ridiculous. Carry on, like.
No. It's terrible, and I mean, like, there's the possibility that if it keeps up, Dundalk are going to face a points deduction, and that almost certainly means
Yeah,
relegation.
yeah.
And like, you've got players, like, even the players that they do have on multi-year contracts, like Daryl Horgan is on, and Darrell Keane, whatever. They
Ironically,
they could
Darren
be just.
Horgan was only signed to a new contract about a month ago.
I remember thinking that was like, knowing the financial situation of
How
Dundalk, I thought that was like insane,
how did that
insane
happen?
stuff.
Did some investors,
I,
or is there somebody outside of this that kind of might have covered that contract? I don't know.
I think there may be restructuring it. There might be a relegation clause in that contract or something, like
Mm,
similar to what happened with Rory Keaton last year.
mm,
I'd be, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is that, like, if they do go down, which looks like a very real possibility at this stage,
mm.
like, it could be a long stay in the first division. It's not easy to get out of that league, and especially if you don't have anything to build on, it could be, you're not going to come straight back up.
Well, my worry for them is the fact that the position they're in, and if Brian Ainscough, in which he has been doing, has been trying
Mm,
to get investors all season, has failed to
mm.
do so. And obviously, the further it goes on, and they're bottom of the league, the less likely investors are going to come in and
Yeah.
actually, and not only come in and buy the club,
Mm,
but pay the debts. Like is
yeah.
Ainsclough willing to let the club go, say, for free so he can get out of it? I wonder. But then, you know what I mean? Who's willing to
Mm,
come in and pay a debt like that at a club
yeah.
that are likely, say, to go to the first division? Oriel
Yeah.
Park, they've no choice but to resurface. That has to be resurfaced at the end of the season, by
Yeah.
the way. So that's another point as well. Like there's no choice in the matter there. So
Mm,
that's their difficult situation for that's the difficulty for me. And will they have to, have file for bankruptcy possibly, and
mm.
do the usual change to Dundalk Town or FC or AFC Dundalk or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a case of they have to do what they have to do to keep the club alive. Because let's be honest, none of us want a club like Dundalk
No.
disappearing into the abyss and becoming no
Mm,
club. And even Drogheda fans, I think, would most of them now, in fairness, wouldn't
yeah.
want that because I mean you miss your loud derbies, etc.,
Mm,
etc. They want them relegated probably, but
yeah.
a lot of them don't want that. So,
No.
and also it's a worry for the Greater League of Ireland as a whole, and it's not a
Mm,
good look for the league. Dundalk are the second
no.
most successful team in Ireland as we speak. Could you imagine they went? We're talking about the league being on the up,
Yeah.
etc. Could you
Mm,
imagine they were their existence was gone tomorrow? Like,
yeah. It's, I mean, like, it's only, what now, 4 years since they were in the Europa League group stages, and they're facing oblivion.
Mm.
Unfortunately, this kind of thing happens too much in the League of Ireland. Cork City were in a similar situation a couple of years ago, where it was only for Trevor Hemmings and his sort of benevolence, really, that they stayed in existence.
This can
You know,
happen at any club, really, Sean, in the League of
it,
Ireland.
it can happen at any club, as I
Yeah.
said. Like, 2016, like it looked like we were going to go out of the league. Like, you're going back to like the really bad old days. And if you're in the first division, like you're looking at the financial picture, like, first of all, yeah, it's a struggle to get investors on board. Fans are not going to turn up in numbers for first division games, unfortunately. Like that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
and it becomes untenable.
I wonder,
Uh,
Sean, is there an option that maybe in the long run, you've seen all these problems with their owners
mm,
recently. Is there an option in the long run that Dundalk can somehow become fan owned in a similar way to Sligo Rovers do very well?
yeah,
And the Bit of Red
mm,
Trust are probably one of the
yeah,
best, if not arguably the best
mm,
trust group in the League of Ireland with all the work they do, etc.,
yeah,
etc. You just wonder, could that
mm,
be a way forward for them as well? Like, because then an owner, we're
mm,
talking about if they're lucky enough to get an owner, who's to say the same thing doesn't happen down the line?
yeah. It's difficult to say. I don't know that there's any precedent for it. Of course, it'd be great if it did happen
Mm.
because you have stability at the club, but I don't know if there's any precedent, or I haven't unfortunately read into it too much. Is there any supporters group that's attempting to buy out the club?
No, there isn't.
Um,
Not right now, there isn't, no.
like, yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunately, I think things are going to get worse at Dundalk before they get better. I think next season is going to be in the first division. I think, the best case scenario for Dundalk is like even like 1 or 2 hard years in the first division where they like
Mm.
survive as a club. They don't go out of the League of Ireland,
Mhm.
and then maybe things start to improve, or you build from like you just knock down everything and you build from like a small base. You say, okay, we're gonna have, I don't know, whatever. We're gonna have like a supporters trust, one that's like really involved with Dundalk,
Mm.
similar to the Bitterhead supporters trust or whatever. But yeah, things are gonna get worse, I think, before they get better.
It's a horrible situation. I'm sure there'll be more will come of this in the next few days. I'd say next week, to be honest. I'm very interested to see if anything comes out of Gamescom. I really think he needed
Mm.
to have a some form of a statement anyway, but that
Mm.
hasn't been coming so far. But guys at home, let us know what you think in the comments. Dundalk fans, particularly about this situation. Cork City fans, if you're watching, you excited to be back again. Pats fans, is there a chance that you can make a late run for Europe? I think it's Waterford home the next game, so no chance of winning that, Sean. They've a horrible
Mm.
record at Richmond, as we all know, against Waterford. And
Yeah.
Shelbourne fans, have you the title in your hands now, or do you think it's wrapped up or whatever? I doubt they think that, Sean, to be honest. Subscribe
Mm.
to the channel. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Sean.